Hello. Thank you so much for having us out here. Special thank you to Jacob and the Legends Fest team for inviting us to come out here and speak. I'm going to bury the lead a little bit and tell you what the focus of the presentation is first, because introducing ourselves spoils a bit of the focus of it. So, our focus of this presentation is our experience getting into development, into game development, and starting a studio. What makes us have a little bit of a unique perspective on this is about 5 years ago, we were not involved in game development in any way. The secret is that we were actually performers and theater professionals in Minneapolis, and we wanted to find a way to utilize our skills to create games, essentially. And we're going to talk a little bit about what skills from other parts of our journey have been really helpful in the game development world. So to start, my name is Harrison Wade. I have been a pianist and music director uh, between Central Illinois, Chicago, New York, international cruise ships, and now I live in Minneapolis. I also compose music, and now I founded our game studio. And here in Minneapolis, I do primarily theater work and performing work along with my wife, and I'll let her speak a little bit more about that.
Christine. I am a performer, voice teacher. I do marketing, graphic design, run a theater company, perform in a theater company. So just wearer of many hats, doer of many things.
Cool. So to give you a little bit of background on our studio, we are Flat Nine Games. It's a music pun for anyone who catches that. And the game that we are developing is called Letter Lost, which we would describe as a can't even talk. Totally normal post office game where nothing weird ever happens. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to make a game that leveraged our skills as theater professionals. And those skills in question are marketing, interacting with our audience and our fans, interpersonal role play amongst an audience, and then storytelling. So we had a theory several years back that there was a large market of gamers that was being underserved. Simply put, that market was people who are wanting to connect with others through role play or engage in a community with other fans or even the developers themselves. There are a couple games in the last year, the last several years, who have really like clued us into that. You know, the resurgence of things like D&D and podcasts of other watching other people play D&D. Even the marketing campaign for a game like Helldivers really encouraged their fan base to interact with the developers and engage with them and sort of role play in that space. And we thought that would be a unique calling for people of our skills with being theater professionals. We felt as if these were our strengths from previous work experience, and thus our studio and then subsequently our game Letter Lost was born. Christine and I have a history of whenever we want to be a part of an industry, we take the initiative and start our own projects within that industry. So our theater company that we started, we've performed 35 plus shows at this point with that company. We bought and renovated a fine arts center where we rent it out to the community here now. And so we do that as well. So this is our foray into game development of I wanted to compose more music for games in addition to theater. Christine wanted to do more voice acting in this realm as well. Our other core member of our team builds and designs escape rooms for a living, like live escape rooms. He's a carpenter and designs the puzzles and actually builds those. And then we have some, degree of like writing experience from amongst us as well. But notably, we did not have a programmer or artist in our roster. So when we started out, since we didn't know anything about the literal designing and programming out of a game, we designed out a lot of our game on paper, the same way that they would design out their escape rooms in live experiences like that. So we designed a lot of the encounters, the stories, the puzzles, the interactions, the secrets, etc., all out on paper, using flowcharts, diagrams, a variety of things like that. And then once we had enough of a foundation to build a game off of, I went with my puzzle designer friend to GDC in 2024 to recruit a team. And that takes us to today, where we've been in development for a little over 2 years now, and our launch is coming up in May. And then moving forward, along with all that in mind, the next things we wanted to talk about was what are the lessons that we learned from starting from nothing, no experience in game design, into starting a studio and beginning to work on a game.
Yeah, so one of the things that we found is that there was just an extraordinary amount of crossover between theater and the gaming industry. I think a lot of the things that we see within different industries, you kind of hear stories and you think like, oh, that sounds so familiar. And so the things in particular that we found were really similar are that it's an extremely crowded market, both for people who want work and for the actual work being made. There's a lot of games being made. There's a big leap from working for yourself or trying to get your foot in the door to actually getting paid to do the work. So a lot of hobbyists, a lot of people hoping to get in, and then a pretty narrow scope of people who are getting paid to do it. And then there's a lot of opinions on the right and wrong way to do the thing. And you're going to hear a lot of stories about this is the way you do it. This is the only way you do it. Don't do this, whatever. So we're going to kind of talk about those three main things and expand upon them and sort of what we've learned and then how we've brought that into gaming. So with the crowded market, this is something that is really embedded in our education and theater. In the world of auditions, it's so brutally, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. You're up against 100, 200, 1,000 people who want the same thing as you, and they're better than you, and they're prettier than you, and you just have to be so bluntly honest with yourself when you're looking at what makes you marketable. And when we jumped into the gaming industry, we just see this so much in a lot of facets of gaming. If you want to be a voice actor, if you want to do art, if you want to 2D, 3D, anything, if you want to market games, if you want to be a composer, you are competing with so many people. And I just don't think we're always taught how to actually stand out beyond just, well, get really good at what you're doing. But when you're 18 or 20 or 22 or even 35, and as you get further into your career, when you start out, you haven't even had the hours, the time to like hyper specialize in any singular thing. You may want to have a specialization, but the reality is you're competing with people potentially decades into the industry and you haven't had the time. It just takes time. And so I think often we are thinking I have to just get really, really good at this one thing. I'll use in theater, I have to get really good at singing or pirouettes or, circus work or whatever. And that can be really valuable to be really good at this one thing that other people can't be good at. But when you are competing with so many people, I think there's a lot of value in generalization and getting used to trying out a lot of skills, really digging into what things speak to you, what things you're interested in. So when I got into the field, I'm learning how to be a great singer, I'm learning how to be a great actor, but then I'm also an instrumentalist. Well, that suddenly narrows down how many people are singers, actors, and can play 5 instruments. Okay, well, the field narrows, right? So when we look at all these different skills, I work on graphic design. At first, it starts with everybody does this thing, and then we narrow in on, but what do I do well, and how can I stand out? What can make me different? It's always easier to walk in a room and not have to compete just point blank with 100 people. If suddenly we're narrowing down to, but only 3 of us have this extra skill, now you're only competing with 3 people. So in the world of game development, same sort of thing where your cohorts, your friends, your colleagues, people who've been in the industry, everyone's going to be good at it. You're not going to be competing with dinguses. You're going to be working and putting your resume and your work into a group of people who all are just as qualified as you. And that can be really daunting. And so thinking about what are the things that I can bring to the table that other people can't. That may include also creating opportunities for yourself with your own interests. So when I first started in theater, before we had started a theater company, before I was doing graphic design, I used to make like dumb fandom art, you know? And this was just like, it just sparked my joy in my life, you know? And now, 15 years later, now I do key art for games and for theaters, and it's what I get money doing. And I still love doing it. But you have to find those little things that you're like, that thing sparks joy. I don't know. And it's not about saying, how do I monetize this? It's about looking at yourself as a whole person and all the things that make you you, all the things that make you marketable, all the things that set you apart from somebody else. And you really have to think about yourself as a product. This is something in theater where it's all very touchy-feely, but then at the same time, it's just like, I am selling myself, I am marketing myself to others. And in gaming, same thing. You have to think about, what is the product that I am selling to somebody else? What skills? Who am I as a person? Why does someone want to give me any money to do this? So I'll hand it off to Harrison to chat a bit more about it.
This is always my favorite thing to talk about, because I have an interesting journey in this world as well. But this is the world of networking. And this is a really easily overlooked skill, but something we brought with us from the theater world, in that we are able to literally look our audience in the eye, and the people bringing in tickets or buying tickets, etc. You can't do that on Steam as easily, but there are still a lot of opportunities to network, and it's an easily overlooked skill that it is a skill to develop. And admittedly, something that a lot of devs I've spoken to struggle with from time to time. There are lots of opportunities that you can create for yourself just because you are willing to talk to people when other people aren't. My first experience with networking with other game developers was that GDC in 2024. And it became really clear to me um, how many people this was their first time trying to network in general, and market yourself in addition to your skills. And the first thing to take away from it is that it's hard. It really is. Like, this is not something that you could just walk into and expect to be good at. And what makes it even worse is that it takes some people a lot more energy and a lot more work to do and to be good at than with other people. And speaking for myself, I used to be really, really shy. I would not talk to anyone in elementary school and middle school. And then going into high school, I went to a high school where none of my friends went to that high school. All of my friends went to the other high school, and I just decided over that summer I was tired of being shy and I wanted to make new friends, and I forced myself to be outgoing, and it was a horrible experience. But here on the other side of it, 20 plus years later now, I'm really thankful that I found the resolve to challenge myself in that way. And now it is my favorite part of the job, actually, is getting to meet people face to face and interface with them, network, learn about them, and it is a really easy way to set yourself apart. So the first thing to learn about networking is that it goes both ways. Whenever I'm chatting with someone else, I like to ask about them as much as I'm talking about myself. And that's just the first way to get your foot in the door with someone if you're trying to learn how to network, is just ask them questions. You don't even have to talk, just ask them questions, make them talk, and then react to what they're saying, basically. So when we were looking to hire people for our studio, we were more drawn to hire people who spoke about us in addition to speaking about themselves. So if someone just handed me a resume and said, "This is everything I do," goodbye, and left. That's pretty impersonal. There's not a lot to remember that person by, but someone who before even handing us a resume would say, "Hey, I looked up your project. This is cool. I like this thing. I'm really into this type of game, and it looks like that's uh, the sort of thing that you're making. Here's my resume. Here's what I've worked on that's similar to what you're making." It shows us that you're as interested in us as you're interested in yourself, etc. So forming that like two-way connection between people. So the people who showed an understanding stuck out and were more likely to make a connection with us and even be hired. I don't think we hired anyone who wasn't willing to engage with us in that sort of way. Then when it goes on beyond that, once we've established this connection and we've started communicating, the amount of people who just don't check their email, don't respond, or ghost us is astonishing. So the sheer fact that you are willing to connect with people and continue that connection sets you out even further. You would be shocked at the amount of people who are they just claim to be so hungry for work. They want to work for you or they want to work for someone else, but then they make it so difficult to give them money. Like these are paid positions that we were offering people and they just would not respond. And so don't be that person. If you're making any type of connection, follow up on it, respond quickly if you can, respond at all, and you will set yourself ahead of a lot of people. And then the best way to practice at it is just to do it. I would encourage you, to find two or three people as you're waiting for things or as you're standing around. Just ask them about themselves, in the appropriate circumstances, right? Not just in a store or something, but like just ask someone about themselves. Get them talking, react to what they're saying, and the more you do it, the better you'll be at it, the more comfortable you'll be at it, because it is a skill, and it's a skill that we can all develop to varying degree, but it is a skill and it's something that you have to continue to work on. And then in terms of networking, just to give you a tease about something we're speaking about tomorrow, tomorrow at 12:30, we're going to be talking a little bit about our sort of guerrilla marketing and our guerrilla networking that we did using our skills as theater people to market our game. So I won't go into too much of that right now since we're speaking about it tomorrow. But we used a lot of those skills at DreamHack Dallas 2025 and at PAX West also in 2025 to just interface and meet with people, get them talking, and then get them interested in our product and us as a studio as well. So check that out again at tomorrow at 12:30 is when we're doing that.
Harrison, I want to add something to this too, because I
Sure.
think the interesting thing is I am an introvert, although I know how to play an extrovert very well on TV because that's my job. But I think when I was younger, I used to think networking was such, oh, it just like gave me the heebie-jeebies, because I was just like, oh, it feels like just throw your business card at people and walk away, or two people just talking at each other, talking about how great they are. And it's just like, this is my nightmare situation. But I think learning more about good networking can mean a lot more than that. I think about a GDC, Harrison and our other dev met another game developer who we have connected with them over the last 2 years. They get each other, we support each other, we lift each other up in each other's social media or whatever. And it's because they had genuine conversations. They went out to dinner together, they looked each other in the eye. The games that we're developing are completely different. We have different backgrounds, different experiences, but it's about finding your people. It's not about just like walking into a cocktail lounge and being like, somebody hire me, please, or anything like that. It's about really identify the people who resonate with you, who you want to help, who want to help you, who now you can be a team together, even within your unique, ventures. And so if networking feels yucky, you're in the wrong rooms. And you got to like come back down to what, as Harrison said, really getting to know people, asking them questions, and find people who you're like, man, we get each other. That's networking. Now you have a connection. Anyways, tangent. Okay. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about is this is the way it's done lectures. So I went to school for theater, and my professors all had a lot of things to say about how the industry worked, and the industry often that they worked in was 20, 15, 10 years old. And some of the things were applicable still, but what they did was try to sell me a very specific path that said like you will hit these checkpoints and this is what you want. And I think that that's all very interesting information. I think there should be a lot of reverence for people who have done it. That is experience you cannot buy. You have to just do it. And there should be reverence for that. And also remember that everybody's background and goals are so different. In the realm of theater, I have no interest in living in New York City because I want to have a house and a garden. And so anyone's advice on if I should move to New York is moot for me because it's not within my life goals to have that lifestyle. And so really thinking about taking the wisdom you hear from people who are vetted and have done this, and then also acknowledging that you may have a different path and that things are rapidly changing and advice should all be taken in context. And even being okay with rejecting advice from people. We have meetings with people who want to get in on the game all the time, who tell us, oh, well, you have to do XYZ to succeed. And it just didn't feel right to us, and we didn't do it, and it's all going just fine. But everybody wants to sell you something. They want to sell you a dream, they want to sell you a product, they want to sell you a service. And you really have to discern, is that worth it? Is that something I need? Or why are you telling me this? And it's okay too to experiment with different paths. You may, let's say you have several skills that you're interested within the industry, or you're thinking about several different specializations. You might try something. You might get an opportunity and be like, yeah, I think I want to try that out. And you might try it out for 6 months and be like, wow, that completely sucked the soul out of my body, and I hate it. And you can shift gears. You are not married to having to do a single thing forever. And you can take every opportunity as a chance to like learn and shape what you want and learn about it. And it's going to evolve. So don't be afraid to just try some different things. And if you're in your teens or early 20s, I think an interesting thing in industries like this is that, well, and it's just in life, you have grown up and like walked alongside people your age in a pretty tight, narrow band of experiences. You have different backgrounds, you like different things, but you're on a really similar path. And I think right as you're exiting this time, after college, after your trade school, after whatever, it feels like if I'm not doing what somebody else is doing, I'm doing it wrong. And there's a lot of pressure to stay on this path that this is the way we were told, this is the way, whatever. But as you get older, those paths really start diverting. You start seeing the many ways in which people actually make a career out of difficult industries like this. And suddenly the ways you can, crack this, it just gets so varied. And so don't be afraid to take an opportunity that seems different, unusual, I don't know, something that inspires you, something that isn't really on the beaten path, or something that you weren't told about at school. It could be something totally different. And then finally, I think that when we're younger, we're really taught about what the goal should be for us. And again, in the world of theater, it's like you want to be on Broadway. And that's what, you're just like, okay, well, how do I get to that? Because that's what I want. And we don't take a lot of time to really think about, do I want everything that comes with that? And so I'll use, in gaming, I think that we're often taught like, all right, how do I get to Blizzard? How do I get to Bungie? How do I get to Devolver? How do I do whatever? And I think those are totally valid goals. But in addition, really thinking about, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my lifestyle to look like? What does stability mean to me? How much do I want autonomy in my job? How much do I want the job to fit my value system? I think it's totally valid to say, I want money. And that is all I care about. I don't care about having autonomy in the games I'm making. I don't care about what I'm making. I just want money for my skills. Totally valid path. But I also think on the very opposite side is, I really want to have creative control, and I want to have autonomy, and I want to really choose how I am making games. I want to make games I believe in. I want to be on teams that I believe in. And maybe money isn't as big of a goal to start with. And then there's all the layers of gray in between. I'm not saying it either has to be like make tons of money and sell your soul, or make no money and have a soul. It's not that. But I think thinking about really, what do I actually want my day-to-day life to look like? And then recalibrating your goals to that. There are a lot of theaters in town that I used to be like, I've got to work there. And now I'm like, oh man, that just doesn't align with my values or how I want to live my life. So I'm not going to do that. So really thinking about those things for yourself, so then you can consider, what kind of rooms do I want to be entering? Who am I actually emailing my resume to? Who am I trying to contact to find the job that will fulfill the most aspects of what I'm looking for?
Going off of that, what we wanted to talk about next was, continuing to frame this all from the perspective of, we did not start out as game developers and are now running a studio, right? So we, in the early days after we concepted the game and we're looking to put a team together, we held a bunch of interviews and for hiring several people, right? We boards, et cetera, and got to interface and meet a lot of people. And we want to talk about what that experience is like from the other side of not being the person to apply to something, but the person receiving all of those applications. And primarily, the main thing that comes to mind when thinking about this, the similarities between the music and performing world with the game development world is that the gap between working for yourself, making your own creations, projects, etc., to being paid by someone to do something is huge. That is a huge step to take, and it's difficult to get your foot in that door from time to time. You're often having to consider your need to get your foot in that door while often being asked or expected to work for free. And making that jump is a difficult one to convince people to pay you sometimes, unfortunately. There's the classic catch-22 of applying for a job, in that to apply for a job, you need experience, and to get experience, you need a job. And so you go round and round in a circle. So I would say set reasonable expectations for yourself to work at an entry level if that's what you're looking for. Some people have connections or skills or even luck out. Luck is a factor, right? And they get a job at a AAA company right away, And if that's the case, awesome. But that is not the experience that most people go through, unfortunately. And so we have to start by building a resume and building experience. And there are a few healthier ways to do that rather than um, being taken advantage of and working for free for too long. So to give you some insight into what the hiring market can look like, again, we are a really small studio of like 4 people at the core, and then we hired, I think, up to 7 to 10 sort of side contractor work to various lengths of time, um, to our name. And all we had was an ad that we placed that said we were paying X or Y amount, And even still, we put this ad out looking for the example I'll use is a paid 3D artist position. And we got over 1,000 candidates for that position alone. And we hired 2 of them. So 998 people who applied to that job did not get anything from it, right? That is how crowded it is. And that was just for one position. And then to talk about what the competition there looked like, maybe 40% of the people who applied uh, could have cut that gig. Maybe higher than that. Maybe 600 people were skilled enough to make the assets and things that we were looking to make. There was a lot of skill that applied. But we had people. One of the people we ended up hiring on their resume was they worked on the Diablo 2 remaster and Diablo 4 as well. Like that is they had like insane work experience, and then there were a lot of people who came fresh out of college, the variety and experience that people were bringing to the table was pretty drastic. And so you have to think, if you are someone who is fresh out of college or in college right now, looking to apply to things like that, someone who has worked at Blizzard in this case, or on Halo or other things like that, is going to be in that pool. Like that is your competition, and it's not always fair, unfortunately. But you have to find ways to make yourself stand out. And the example I'm going to use here, that person who had Diablo 2 and Diablo 4 on their resume, um, they were, just looking for something in which it was like a passion project, They had been doing, um, some sort of stuff in Diablo 4 that wasn't exactly it wasn't like creatively fulfilling for them. They had it on their resume, but they were like, yeah, that was a good experience. I'm looking to do things that are more that are a better outlet for creativity, where I can be a little more creative in what I'm making here. And so they quoted us a very low rate, and we had a lot of people who were fresh out of college with zero experience that were asking for double of what this person was asking for. Um, and both of them were completely reasonable rates. I understand why everyone was asking for the pay they were, but that was the competition. And so from our perspective as a studio, we could not hire. a lot of the people fresh out of college who were asking for the rates that they were, even though that may be the market rate, et cetera. We had someone with a lot of experience offering to work for, much, much less than those market rates. Um, so in theater, we talk about the three pillars that you want to consider when you're taking on work. And those three pillars are the people, the project, and the pay. And to start, if you are starting from the ground up, if you don't get pulled into a AAA company right away and you're trying to build your resume, aim for two of those pillars. And pay is always the hardest one to hit. So you want to aim for a project that you are passionate about or that fulfills you creatively, and people who line up with your values or your experience level, people that you like working with, basically. And then eventually we start to bring in that third pillar of the pay. So to do that, I I try to personally I just reach out and connect to people, right? We found a lot of people who have worked on this game by knowing them through somewhere else, a friend of a friend, et cetera, or a contact, someone I met at GDC, someone who we later met at PAX West or DreamHack. Reach out, connect to those people. People reach out and connect to us as well, which is always really a lot of fun to get to chat with people that way. We've had a lot of people who are in this position who are looking to build resume and their experience. And so they'll reach out and they'll offer their services in exchange for experience or a credit on the game. And that can be okay. I know that's sort of a controversial topic at times of offering your work for free. And I would say that it can be okay, but make sure to set boundaries for yourself. And we as a studio always try to set those boundaries for people if they aren't like upfront and willing to set them for themselves. So you want a shipped game on your resume, but it cannot come at any cost. You cannot sell yourself to get that shipped game on your resume. Set a boundary, and once that boundary is reached, empower yourself to either ask for pay or step away. We've had some people who they signed on as to do QA work and or like little 2D art things or things like that, just to get a resume credit, And so we found a scope of work that was like, okay, here's, I don't know, 10, 15 hours, whatever, of work to do. And if you do this sort of stuff with us, work with us, sit in on some meetings with us, like learn some things too, then we'll put your name in the credits. And, you have a shipped game on your resume, and we got, a little bit of, we got to, meet you and network with you to maybe pull you in future projects. And, it was great. Um, but then they went on after they did that. We liked their work so much that we went on to begin paying them for things too. We need maybe 10 extra hours one week of work to get caught back up on something. Oh, well, let's ask this person who worked with us before. Let's give them a little paid work this time to see if we can, get them to do a little bit more for us. Um, on those lines, we've always found entry level tasks and skills for people to help develop their skills and build their resume. Some of those tasks that we've found for people are learning the language of dialogue programming. We use Inkle. There are a few other ones as well. Twine. They're all very easy to learn. Actually, it just takes time. It just takes familiarity and time with those things to learn how to do those. And we found people that were interested in learning those things and built those skills through working with us. QA testing is another thing that it is a skill, but the floor for that skill can be quite high. Presumably if you want to get into game development, you've played games. And so QA testing at a baseline is play the game. You get better over time at figuring out how to communicate when you come across things that, either bugs or, objects floating off of shelves, objects clipping through things, et cetera, dialogue not lining up correctly or voice lines, sound effects, et cetera. But the baseline, to start developing your skills, you can start out by learning how to QA test, learning how to sound engineer and record, right? I grew up a classical pianist, and then when I got into composing, it was like, well, I can't always hire an orchestra play to play my pieces that I'm writing. I have to learn from the ground up how to record and how to engineer MIDI and sound engineer and EQ and balance and all these things. And there is an infinite amount of YouTube videos for everything you want to learn. And it might not all be valid, it might not all be up to date, but the information's all out there. It just takes time and it takes patience and it takes learning and things like that. Graphic design is another great way to get your foot in the door of something. There are lots of people that you can learn from. Look at the work that they've done. We have in our game little images for the toolbar at the bottom of your screen or menus, things like that, where we found people who were interested in getting experience and credit on their resume. And we had them just make little icons and things like that. And now we're giving them paid work in addition to that.
And I would say,
Um,
like, really don't underestimate stuff like that. I have an actor friend who did graphic design on the side, did it on the side enough until now she works for Netflix to make their key art. And this
yeah,
is not some extraordinary, she had some connection in Netflix. It was just she continued to follow something that she enjoyed doing until she was suddenly working at this ginormous company. And as you continue to get your foot in the door, places like that, they think of you first because they recognize you. It's that name that they go, we need someone for, oh, remember so and so. And so it can be really valuable to just follow the seeds of your interest and just go, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm not sure.
yeah. And then, the final part of all this, if you are looking for this type of work, prioritize other studios who are in a similar position to you. If you're looking to get your foot in the door, get some experience, um, build your resume, and eventually lead that into building into paid work. Find studios that are at a similar level to you or just above you. Don't start emailing Rockstar to work on GTA 7. Um,
GTA
email
7.
email
Oh my
us
gosh, let's
on,
get 6
people
out
like,
first.
yeah, right, if that ever comes up. Let's email people who are at your level, at the entry level. Um, Email all of them, make it personalized emails like we talked about. Don't just send your email or your resume. Prove that you have looked at their work or their product, what they're making. Engage with them, and then they'll be much more likely to reach back out to you. And then finally, all of this is under the frame of don't do any of this unless it's a personal friend, etc., unless you know them personally. I still would recommend always get a contract for this type of work. They're really easy to write. That's the truth of it. You can put a few words on a paper, date it, sign it. Both parties have signed it. Now it just holds people accountable for just to make sure that you get what you are being told you're going to be compensated, whether it's money or credit in the game, etc. And if you're the one doing the hiring, it guarantees that you have something to point to be like, well, you didn't do the thing, so we can't give you the thing. It works both ways, and it's both protection for both parties, and it's just not that hard to do. So if they don't have a contract for you, look up a template for one, look up, simple language. It can just be a couple lines that say, I will do X work, you give me Y thing. Get both parties to sign it, and then you're much better off, much more protected for things like that if they refuse to put you in a credit or stuff like that. Um, yeah, so just to sort of cap it all off, I hope this was a huge help for those of you who are looking to start at any level. I again 5 years ago we were not developing games whatsoever, and we're about to release in 2 months here. It's been a really really exciting and enlightening journey to get to be a part of. I met Jacob and the Aura Fury crew in DreamHack, I believe it was. And we've stayed in contact with them and we're on the podcast and stuff like that. So you never know where someone that you just walk up to and you meet them, you never know where that will take you, even a year, 5 years, etc. Um, yeah, go out there and just experiment and do it for yourself. Anything to close with there, Christine?
I think just thinking about the reason I continue to think these industries are so similar is that you're really caught between holding strong boundaries for yourself and doing what it takes to get in the room. And I think you really have to just look really deeply within yourself and figure out what your balancing act is because you can't sell your soul to this stuff. You'll burn out so fast and you'll get so jaded and it'll be so frustrating. But at the same time, I can't walk up to a theater and be like, I'm going to need $2,000 a week to do this, and you're going to be happy about it because I will never hear back. And so it's a fine line, and I think every person is different in what they're looking for, but you can't sit on just an ideal of what you want it to be. You have to look at the market, you have to look at your skill set, you have to be extremely honest and realistic with yourself and be willing to look at how you can grow. Don't make the mistake of thinking that at 18 or 22, you are at your final form because you are not. You are in high school and in college and beyond. You're learning how to continue to learn. You're not you're not like signed, sealed, delivered, done, now the peak of who I'm going to be. And so really looking at yourself and going, here's who I am, here's what I'm excellent at, and here's what I need to grow on, and here's how I continue on those paths. Because if you're not willing to take really honest looks at yourself and what you're bringing to the table, you're bound to get disillusioned in a really challenging industry like this.
Cool. I think Jacob, you mentioned there was an opportunity for questions. If anyone had questions, we would be more than happy to answer anything and everything.
Yes, does anybody have any questions for them? All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine Harrison Wade, again, Flat Nine Games. Oh, seems to be a little audio. Thank you so much. The advice you guys gave today was invaluable. Your stories are invaluable. It was really a cool experience listening to you and getting to hear. Really looking forward to tomorrow when you guys come by. Excited for that. And yeah, again, just thank you so much for joining and being able to give us a piece of your life and your journey and how you got here. I think especially the networking, the genuine networking, making genuine connections, the resume building, it seemed to all focus and center around an individual's potential and an individual's drive and how much opportunity there is out there for people as long as they know how to seize it and go after it in that manner. So again,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're also excited about tomorrow. Tomorrow is that's the fun stuff. This is the broccoli. And tomorrow is the stuff that was like, all right, these are all the ways that people told us not to do it, but we did it our own way and had a lot of success. And yeah, we're really excited about that one too.